Hi, everybody. Great to be back with you again. This last weekend, as you remember back, we had the opportunity to study the third of the fall feasts, the third of the seven that we'll be looking at as we get ready for Easter. The Feast of Tabernacles or booths. Sometimes it's called the Feast of Shelters. Sometimes it's called the Days of Ingathering in the book of Isaiah. And we highlighted it that the primary purpose for it was to let them the Hebrew people express their joy over God's provision. And I hope you had a good time studying. I learned a lot in my preparation, and I hope you did as well. Well, during our time, if you remember back, one of the reasons why the Hebrew people celebrated was because of a custom. In their rejoicing, they developed some new traditions that not recorded in the Bible, but were very, very meaningful, and that, as you remember back, are seen in the New Testament and impacted why Jesus said what he said and did what he did. And you'll remember that the custom that was established was this water pouring ceremony. And Jesus utilized that in John chapter 7 at the last day of the great feast, which is the Day of Tabernacle, to say, if any man is thirsty, let him come to me and drink. And it was his way of declaring once again that he was the Messiah. He was the provision of God. They were looking to God to provide for water. He was that living water, as he shared with the woman at the Samaritan woman at the well. So I wanted to take a minute, though, with all of that in mind, and share with you a second tradition that developed in the context of the Feast of Tabernacle that also impacted Jesus and what he said and what he did. The water pouring ceremony, if you remember back, occurred each day, and then in a very significant way at the end of the ceremony on the seventh day when Jesus spoke up, the priest walked around that altar 7 times. Well, there was a second tradition that started on the second night of the 7-day feast, and involved the lighting of very, very large candles that were in one of the outer courts of the temple area. It was called the Court of the Women. And these were huge, huge candles. And they had ladders up against them. And the family members of the priests would climb the ladder and pour the oil in at the start of the ceremony on the second day. And the bright light could be seen throughout all of Jerusalem. It must have been quite a sight. Well, we know that after Jesus spoke about him being the one who quenches all thirst, we also know that Jesus made another statement in John chapter 8 and verse 12. Might be familiar to many of you, but he said this, "I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of light." And I never put it together with the Feast of Tabernacles. And I began to realize it's very, very possible that these two events of Jesus saying that if you're thirsty, come to me, and I am the light of the world, were both illustrated by the water pouring ceremony as well as the candle lighting ceremony on the Feast of Tabernacles. It's just a very interesting way that the Lord again communicated. And he goes on after making that statement in John chapter 9, and he opens the eyes of a blind man. He was indeed the light of the world. And my encouragement to you in all of this and just some of this background information, we can rejoice because of what Jesus has done for us. And so I hope you have a great time rejoicing with your group. You've got lots of questions to dialogue and discuss about, and hope you have a wonderful time sharing, living out this biblical value of fellowship and of connecting together. I'm so proud of you. Keep going. I look forward, Lord willing, to being with you next week.